Hi, my name is Brett Donaghue. I go by BDD Builds on Instagram and YouTube, and this is my Skyrim mock for Fort Dawnguard. So it's based on the video game Skyrim. Last year I had the Riverwood build, so this is like a continuation of that series. And so this is the fort of the Dawnguard, which are the vampire hunters. And so I tried to include as much detail. So the pathway starts and it rounds about, and then it goes up until this little palisade wall, and then it keeps going up along the mountainside until you get to the fort itself. There's a little campsite over there with a garden and the little villagers that go outside. The first part I built was actually the waterfall area over in the mountains with the icicles. And then I sort of built more toward the front. And then the actual castle itself, it uses this rounded technique for the towers. It's these 1x2 rounded plates that are stacked 3 high. And it uses over 10,000 of those in the build alone. And so, yeah, it took me about 9 months to build. I started after last year's BrickFair. And so, yeah.
I mean, really, really impressive. Just great landscaping that just kind of runs really nicely into the castle. So I like that a lot, especially, like you said, the way the pathways work, you can just sort of create a story in your mind and follow through.
Yeah, and integrating it all with the rock work was a bit tedious and a bit challenging, especially when you're trying to get the castle on top. It's supposed to be a little bit taller, but I had to make a couple sacrifices here and there to get the pathway winding up and get the castle on top of the mountain. And the castle itself is also supposed to be a little bit longer, but again, I had the limitations with how much space I'm allowed to build with. And the same thing with the interiors. So I wanted to make sure, like with last year with the Riverwood, I had the interiors, and so I always loved the little details that you can add in the stories and all the characters from the actual game. So this is the forge here that you're showing right now, where they make the weapons, and next to it is the little alchemy enchanting area. And then around the other side, you have the dining hall where they eat, and then the little sleeping quarters is a little harder to see. So yeah, I always try to make as many little details as I can, even if the public can't really see that much.
And that's all held up kind of with these arch structures, or what's that kind of internally in there?
Yeah, so underneath, so I think that's just more deep decoration than actual stability. These aren't really holding up a lot. It's mostly these walls that are holding it up, and then underneath in between ththese panels, there's a lot of Duplo and a lot of colorful brick on the inside. But it is pretty structurally sound. This is one solid chunk here. And it splits into, I want to say, 5 different sections. The castle alone, the landscape itself is probably another 10 or so modules that I can transport individually.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the number of these pieces in the round tower. Do you know a total piece count for the whole build?
Unfortunately, I don't. I can, if this is alone was 10,000, I can guess maybe 50,000 to 100,000, maybe. It's hard to tell.
What are some of the other minifigs and little details we have scattered on top of the castle here?
Yeah, so the minifigures, they all are using official LEGO parts, either from the Kingdoms line or from the new Viking village, had a couple of those torsos. So typically you have in the game either like a heavy set of armor or a light set of armor, so I tried to incorporate that here with some the more heavier looking armor, and then there's some lighter looking armor. But try not to be too uniform, but try to keep it so they look like they're all on the same side.
So obviously, with this being based on a video game, what was your sort of research process like? Was it screenshots or just kind of pulling up the game as you were building?
Yeah, so just like with Riverwood, it gave me another excuse to play the game. And so walking around trying to get all the bearings, how big I could actually make it. So it is about the same footprint as the Riverwood village. So yeah, just walking around, taking plenty of screenshots, trying to get, where does this tree go? Does it make sense to go here? And try to get everything as close as I reasonably could get to the game within LEGO's means.
And I love these details down here with kind of the garden area, especially the way you kind of wove those pieces together for the fence. What are some of the other kind of landscaping details inside the castle here?
Yeah, so yeah, as you mentioned, I love that the hose piece that you can use. You can weave around the bars to get the fence. Just a lot of tiles. I love the cobblestone look with the rounded 2x2 and 1x1 tiles in the gray colors, and using the dark tan and the nougats and the olive greens just to get as much earth tones as you can, because it's supposed to look like a beaten down path that goes up to the castle. It's been used countless times by the soldiers, so I just tried to make it look as realistic as possible.
And we don't see a lot of wooden palisade walls, but I love how you did this with the tan cone on top of those round brown pieces. I think works so well, very recognizable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a noticeable feature in the game is, as you progress through, so when you first start this location in the game, there are no palisades, and then as you progress through the quests, more of the fort gets built up, and those become a staple feature of the outside area of the fort.
And another standout feature is the trees. You've got some bright, colorful ones and just a big variety in here. So if you can take us through a few of those and kind of your different approaches to design.
Sure. Yeah, so I definitely wanted to get a more variety of trees. With the Riverwood, they were all kind of a similar build style. But I know in the location there are tons of birch trees, with the fall foliage. And I tried to include a different mixture of types of pine trees. So some of them have those three-pronged grass stems. Some of them are using the fern elements that are fairly new. And then I also tried to use the regular limb elements mixture with the sand and olive green, and tried to get a variety of colors. So you have the regular green, you've got the olive and sand green, more of the darker greens. So I just tried to use a ton of variety of different techniques and colors for the trees.
Yeah, even some snow capped here, kind of this, and even the ice and water over there.
Yeah, so this is set in sort of a valley area, and so along the sides you got the mountains with the snow on top in the game. So I did try to capture that. There's not so much snow on the ground, but definitely the mountain areas and on the trees near the mountains. I tried to put snow on the trees that are closer to the mountain sides.
What was your approach with the waterfalls and kind of the running water there and the pieces you used?
Yeah, that was tricky. Those are not very stable. It's mostly using clear 1x2 bricks and the 2x2 slopes that are transparent clear. Just stacking them and using cheese slopes to and 1x1 rounded plates to get the finer details around it to make it look as natural as you can. And similarly with the icicles, I know in the game those are another known feature. So using those claw elements attached to a couple clips, I think it gives a good effect of the water going through, but then freezing on the sides, in a nice icicle look.
Do you include little Easter eggs for the real hardcore fans, something that's maybe harder to spot or pick out from the build?
There are a few that aren't a ton, but I know one of the rags I got from Riverwood was the lack of cheese, so I put a little reference here to a bunch of cheese wheels being delivered to the fort for everyone to feast on. And there are a couple characters, so you got a couple of the Dragonborn characters. All the named characters from the Dawnguard are present either inside or around the grounds. There aren't a whole lot of Easter eggs. I know there's the courier. He's pretty notorious over there with the letter, who's always trying to look for the player to deliver letters to. So I tried to include a couple, but probably not as many as I would have wanted to. But.
And you got some unique kind of architectural details here in the way that you built out the castle. So how did that come together for you?
So again, it's taking inspiration from the game. I tried to include the features that are part of the fort. So these pillar column-like structures, and then the rounded towers with the little turrets that jut out from a couple of the towers. So it was kind of easy because I was going based off the game. It's a little easier than building your own creation from scratch without any inspiration. So I just tried to be as accurate as possible, including with these this little wooden structure there.
Have you had people from the public kind of walk up and start to recognize it as they realize what they're looking at?
Not as much as with Riverwood. This isn't as well of a known location, I think. But there have been those who have recognized it. And even if they didn't recognize it, the public has received it well with the various trees and the landscape and the mountains and the castle itself. It's been pretty well received.
And this is a really sizable build, so what was the transport process like in kind of getting it set up here at BrickFair?
Yeah, so this year I was allowed to bring my minivan instead of my my sedan last year. So It still took 2 trips, but it breaks down pretty easily in chunks, and I just put them in boxes and into the minivan and just drive carefully, so that nothing falls off. There was a little bit of damage, mostly with the trees, but I expected to have to rebuild a lot of those anyways.
Do you think you'll continue the Skyrim series next year with another build?
Very likely, so it'll hurt, but I'll probably have to take this apart after the show, so I can start building for the next show next year. But yeah, I intend to stay with Skyrim. We'll see for how much longer, but right now this is where my passion lies with Lego building, so I'll probably continue that.
Yeah, fantastic. We don't see a lot of Skyrim builds, so it's cool to see you tackling this source material, and the build turned out great, so thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.